Good evening. Today is Monday, November 20th, 2017. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Board of Education. If we could start tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We just came from executive session, and we are going to start tonight with comments from our board members. Cynthia, do you want to start?
Well, good evening, everybody. So for the kids, the first quarters in the middle school and high school have ended, and I'm sure they're very anxious to get into their holiday celebrations, as I'm sure the teachers really need it so that they can recoup and come back refreshed and regenerated.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for those tuning in, and thank you for those who attended this evening. I would just like to wish everybody in the community, the teachers, the administrators, happy Thanksgiving. And as Cynthia mentioned, the first quarter is over. I'm sure the students are happy, and the year is moving along quickly. So again, I hope everyone enjoys the holiday, takes a little rest, and comes back ready to go.
Thank you, Ron. Daj?
Just wanted to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and if everybody should read the newsletters from the principals, what a great job. There's enough information in there. It's probably the most I've seen in a long time. Even the capital improvement, they give you the link, the date, the vote is, so please read it. If you have any questions about the capital improvement, you got 2 weeks left, so make sure you go out and vote. Thank you.
Pete?
Good evening, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving as well. Just a few updates and announcements from the high school. I just wanted to say congratulations to, hope I don't mess this name up, Miriam Kajoshi and Renz Toledo, Sydney Nealis, and Haley Pagnata for their participation in the All-State Chorus. They did a great job, and also want to recognize Ms. Fernandez for the great job she did with regards to that as well. And a couple upcoming events at the high school. December 1st, the Variety Show at 7:30. And on December 3rd, they have the ELA Holiday Literary Festival at Barnes & Nobles. And December 12th is the high school winter concert at 7:30. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Pete. I wanted to thank actually the PTA. About 3 weeks ago, I believe it was, the PTA hosted a forum in the Cottle auditorium where parents were able to email in, parents or community members email in questions, things that have been on their mind, whether it's something that they're concerned about or something that they really feel good about, or just really any spectrum, anything that was on their mind whatsoever. And they had the opportunity to present those questions to the PTA. I want to thank Allison Halloran for really a lot of hard work she put into that. Carl and Ellen were there, and myself and a couple of board members. And I really felt it was very informative, and I really hope it's something we can continue. It is one of our board goals to be able to communicate with the community, and we hope that that is a venue possibly that we can continue with, because it is sometimes very difficult, we know, for parents to come to a meeting, or sometimes even parents for some reasons feel intimidated to make a phone call. And this is a way where something's on their mind and it gets vetted through the PTA and comes to us, and I really felt that it was very positive and a really good discussion, and several subjects were discussed, and I thought it was very helpful, so I wanted to thank the PTA. I also did want to note, oh, here's Allison here. I did want to note that what Daj said a little earlier, today is the last public meeting before our vote on December 5th of our capital project. We have had several community meetings. I'm not sure if this is something that you're going to talk about, Carl, but we've had several community meetings, information sessions, opportunities for the public to come out. We do have 2 more upcoming meetings, and I want everyone to please note they are, one is on November 28th, and that will be held at the Community Center at 7 p.m., and the other is on November 29th, and that's going to start here in the high school lobby at 6:45 p.m. There will be a tour followed by another information session. Please, I urge all community members to try to attend one of those 2 meetings, especially the tour. We as a board found it to be so helpful. The community members that since have been on our tours that we have offered have all expressed to us how informative they felt that was, and a real eye-opener to really see what the needs are. So I really, really encourage you to, if you cannot attend one of those 2 meetings, to please, as Daj said, to go on our website. It is very informative. There is so much information there. Lee has put on a calculator. We are very transparent. We want everyone to know what this project will cost you. It is a very fair question, and if you know your assessment, your home assessment, you could put that number in and it will calculate an estimate, because as of now, we do not know the exact interest rate, but it will give you a very fair idea of what this project will cost your household. If you don't know what your assessed value on your home is, you can go on the Eastchester Town website. That's at eastchester.org. There is the assessment roll, and every homeowner's address is on there with their assessment. You could also get that off your tax bill if you happen to know where your tax bill is. Usually after they're paid, nobody wants to look at them right now, but it is also on your tax bill. So I urge you really please to inform yourself, to be an informed voter, to really try to understand what the needs are of our school district, our growing school. And I really want everyone to please, again, I can't say it enough, to please be informed about the vote on December 5th. I did also want to take another opportunity to say Happy Thanksgiving to our entire school community, especially to our staff and faculty here who work every day for our students. And while we are asking for a capital improvement project, I think it's very important to be thankful for all that we do have. And I think when you are appreciative of what you have, it's kind of easier to ask for more, because we know what we have is a good thing. We need more to meet the needs of our students right now. So with that being said, Carl, if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Sure. You were pretty thorough, and thank you. So I also send out my warm wishes to all of our students, our families, and of course our staff for happy and healthy Thanksgiving and the holidays that follow. Michelle, I think, was very thorough in explaining that. As I think most of the community knows, at this point in time, on December 5th, we have our capital project vote. We've been pretty aggressive about trying to get the word out. We've been meeting for the past 2 weeks. I want to say there's been at least 8 or 9 different meetings in various locations, not just here at the school, but the tours have been effective. But of course, we've gone out into the community, met with Chester Heights Association, with the Bronxville Manor Association. After Thanksgiving, we'll be meeting with our village. I've presented at village board meetings, had town hall style meetings. So it's been pretty comprehensive. The entire community will also receive a capital bond bulletin that looks like this. It may have arrived today, but if not, within the next day or two, you'll have some holiday reading if you choose to. And I do encourage everybody to look at this. I think it does a great job of summarizing what this capital project is trying to accomplish for the students of Tuckahoe. If you choose to go beyond this, the website has an enormous amount of information. There's a history of how this plan developed. And recently, we also posted a video. And as Michelle said earlier, I think sometimes seeing the actual space and having a visual of what we're trying to accomplish is important, sometimes more important than just verbally explaining it or reading about it. So there is a video that if you go to the website, you can click on. It's only 3 minutes, but I think it does a nice job of summarizing this project. It also went out to staff and parents today in the bottom of a letter that kind of summarized the accomplishments from September through now from our students and our staff. And so I encourage you to stay informed and take a close look. It is a very important decision for the future of our district. Peter, thank you for mentioning some of the high school events, but I just want to plug all 3. We have 3 outstanding concerts coming up. The Cottle, well, let me start with the high school. That is the earliest. Peter mentioned it is on December 12th. The middle school is December 14th, and Cottle is on December 20th. We stagger them, but I encourage you to come out and see those concerts. It'll set your holidays off on the right foot. And the students have been working hard preparing, and I believe you will enjoy them. Again, thank you and have a nice holiday.
Thank you, Carl. Lee, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I did want to mention that I've been working on developing and updating the budget calendar for our budget. We're starting to prepare the 2018-19 budget for next year. And the first things on the calendar agenda will really be our Budget Advisory Committee will start to meet again, so I'm going to send out an invitation to them to meet in mid-December. And we'll start to look at the assumptions that the state gives us in terms of what they are allowing us for a tax levy increase and other factors in the budget. And we'll start to prepare some preliminary estimates that I'll share with the board as we go forward. But I will provide you with an updated calendar so you can see what it looks like spread out through the year.
Great, thank you. That'll be here before we know it.
Yep.
Michelle, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just one other point, I think, just in case people looked at an early calendar, we switched one board meeting. Originally, December 4th, we had a board workshop scheduled, and that was way back in the summer. But once we approved this bond referendum, once the board approved it, we rescheduled that workshop date for the same date as the bond referendum, December 5th. So that's a Tuesday. We usually don't do board meetings on a Tuesday. What we will do early on in that evening, we will have student recognition, which is a tradition. We've done that for all students, academic recognitions as well as sports recognitions. That'll happen on December 5th at 6:30 in the auditorium. Then afterwards, the board will convene for a workshop meeting, and at the very end, we will open up for a public meeting to accept the official results of the bond. So again, that's all happening on December 5th.
Okay, and one more thing that I also just remembered about the vote is I wanted to remind the Chester Heights community that they will not be voting at the firehouse this year. And I know they've been accustomed to that for several years. But because of the construction taking place at the firehouse, we will no longer be able to hold an election, a vote there. So the vote for Chester Heights will be here at Cottle Auditorium, Cottle Elementary. So we did send a postcard, a reminder to all of Chester Heights. We did mail that. We want to make sure that everyone is informed of that, but I just wanted to remind the Chester Heights community again that they will be voting here at Cottle School at the Cottle Auditorium. Okay. I'm sure we'll think of something else again, but we're going to keep going. Comments by the PTA. Allison, did you want to say something?
Hello. First, I just want to say thank you to the board and Carl and Ellen for helping us with our PTA general meeting. It was really informative. We had a lot of questions, and I appreciate those of you who were on our panel and who sat in our audience to listen. We had our Pooch Parade fundraiser, which is a really great community event. It was a lot of fun. We also had a 4th grade assembly day for Journey into American Indian Territory. Earlier in the month, we hosted our Tuckahoe High School principal coffee with Dr. Lenahan. Thank you very much. That was well attended. And we also had the Stuff a Bus pajama program last week, which again, our Cottle community just came out in abundance with all of their donations of pajamas and new books. We have a fundraiser at Lola, which is a local store, on November 30th. So look out for the invitation to that. We have our tours of the Egyptian area of the Met Museum on December 2nd. And we have our holiday boutiques at Cottle on the 12th and the 13th of December. And then just one new thing that we have is on January 11th, we're going to have a William Cottle math night, and we have pocketbook bingo coming up. And that's it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Okay, Tuckahoe School Foundation, Regina.
Hello. Last Friday night was the Tuckahoe School Foundation's 15th annual casino night. It was at the VIP in New Rochelle, and we had about 150 guests. Thank you to the administration, teachers, and faculty who attended and or donated. Thank you. A lot of you were there, and I hope you all had fun. Thank you to all the parents who attended. Thank you to all the Tuckahoe alumni who attended and donated. For a small community, there are a lot of alumni, so thank all of you for attending and keeping, donating and keeping in touch with us. We very much appreciate it. So Casino Night was a fun night, and it's the only fundraiser that TSF does. We will use this money to give teachers grants for things they want and need that are not in the budget. We will also use this money for scholarships. Seniors and parents of seniors, please remember that we do give scholarships to the seniors. Please speak to the guidance counselors about applying for this scholarship, for these scholarships. Last year we gave 4. Thank you for listening to me speak, and have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thanks, Regina. Okay. Okay, now we have a presentation. Is that Ellen?
We do. Once a year, I'll just introduce this by saying, once a year, we publicly present student performance data. In past years, we've grouped elementary, middle, and high school together, and we've waited for the regions to be unembargoed. They remain embargoed. I think even as we speak, they're still embargoed. They should release that data soon for public review. But the 3 through 8 data is available right now, and that's our elementary and middle school here in Tuckahoe. So I've asked Dr. McDonald, along with our middle school principal, Mr. Barnett, and our elementary principal, Mr. Cuglietto, to put together a presentation based on the district's performance from last year, grades 3 through 8, ELA and math. And I think it's a good thing that we break it up this year, because I do believe in one sitting there was an awful lot of information and data. So I think it's something new, but I think it's much better to be in 2 parts. And with that, I will turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. McDonald.
That covers the points that I was going to say in the first few, so that was perfect. To remind people, we do have a strategic plan. We are in year 5 of our 5-year plan, and we'll be starting to work on our needs assessment in the spring. And this falls under the category of student outcomes. So while our board comes around, I'll just remind you of a couple things that Carl may not have mentioned. Another piece of data that's also still embargoed are our 4th and 8th grade science assessments. So you will just hear, as he said, about ELA and math tonight in grades 3 through 8. And not only will you hear about things that we did last year, what we hope to do is to share, well, here's what we put in place last year, some ideas of the supports. Here's how they performed, and the principals are going to share that with you, as well as some ideas of what they've done since the school year began, since we've had this data in hand. So that is where we will go. So reminders about what's happening, right? Grades 3 through 8 took ELA and math, and those exams were attempting to look at how are our students performing on the Common Core learning standards in New York. This was the 5th year of the exam, so we are actually going to show you a 5-year set of data. Finally, the last set of non-Common Core fell off, so the bars will make a little more sense in terms of being assessing the same information, the same content over the years. We've worked on aligning with those, and there has been an issue, and that New York State Education Department in the past has been criticized for their implementation of this program. 5 years ago, it was dumped every grade level at the same time, was being assessed, and with content moving around, there were significant challenges at that time to make sure that every child at every grade level was ready for where the content went and the type of rigor that they're going to be asked to do. So in the past few years, many parents have chosen across the state and in this district to refuse to allow their children to participate in these assessments. So when responding to that, we have a new chancellor of the State Education Department as of a year, almost 2 years now. And so one of the things that she did for last year was to change how the assessments are designed. They were designed by an outside vendor in the prior years, and she canceled that contract and started a new contract with Questar Assessments, where they use New York State teachers to write items now instead of just contract employees. They've put, and they used to do that. So teachers are now back in the driver's seat in terms of the development process. They also last year decreased the number of test questions and shifted the testing to untimed in response to children's concerns that they didn't feel like they could finish. New for the year coming up is the last bullet point, we're happy to now say that they've been able to find a statistically significant assessment they can do in 2 days instead of 3. So the amount of time in testing for our children is being dramatically reduced. And what we're hoping in this district, as with that reduction of numbers of items, with the reduction of testing days, we're hoping families will encourage the children to be a part of the process. Because last year, 17% of the children who could test at Cottle did not. 34% of those who could be assessed in the middle school did not. And so when we look at this data, you need to understand that it does not represent all the children here in Tuckahoe, because they didn't all choose to participate. So the decisions that we make based on this data, we always just have to keep that in mind. To remind those in the community what our demographics look like, because state data is disaggregated and reports are made. So that you know, last year, the number that we had on Beds Day, we had 1,162 children in the district, 11% Black or African American, 14% Hispanic or Latino, 7% Asian or Native Hawaiian, I believe almost all of those are Asian, 67% white, and you can see the rest 2% multiracial. In terms of disabilities and English language learners, we came out at 14% students with disabilities, 5% English language learners, and economically disadvantaged is defined by who is eligible for free and reduced lunch in this state. That's the only metric that they have, and we had 19% of our students participating in that program. So what do we see in the data? Just a couple of bullet points of overalls. We're now in year 5, as I said, and so for ELA, this past year, grades 3, 5, and 7, the odd numbered years, had the largest percentage of students performing at proficient since the exams began. So they have outdone themselves in terms of prior cohorts. And in 5, 6, and 7, they had the largest percentage of mastery, so they're still increasing results coming out. And in math, 6 and 7 had their highest percentage this year of the 5 years prior in terms of proficient, and they also had their highest percentage of mastery since the Common Core testing began, and those are good things to know. So things we've done in the past, we decided I would share these since the 2 principals are new to this year. They weren't here when we did these things, so we figured I'd just keep talking and tell you a little more before handing it over to the principals to talk about the data itself. As you all may know, but again, we want to keep highlighting those things that we have in place so that the community understands what we've been doing. Reading Wonders Literacy was put in multiple years ago in grade K through 5. We brought leveled reading libraries in at each grade level in Cottle that would correspond with what was changing at Common Core. Envisions Math is the program used for math at Cottle. This year, there's a new version, 2.0. All right, so 2nd grade piloted 2.0 last year. So for those children, we are continuing with the rollout of that newer version. So now 2 and 3. And then this year, decisions will be made under the leadership of Mr. Coglietto as to what to do backwards into K1 and moving forward. But again, this is things we did last year. And so last year, the science portfolios that were brought in by Mr. Albano, the science fair, and the 2nd year of the science fun day with IBM did occur again last year. And that common prep time was really worked on, and Mr. Kilgallen spent a lot of good time with the schedule last year to really try to ensure that grade level teams had some time together, because some years that works better than others in terms of when specials occur, and last year that became a stronger priority, and so that was able to happen. In 6 through 8, they continued with their teacher's summer choice reading program, where the students pick from a list that teachers select for them to read, and when they come back in the fall, they get together with a group with a faculty person who's also read the book and get to talk about something they enjoyed together about reading, to have a common independent reading experience. We continued Summer Scholars and Summer Academy last year. What that means is Summer Scholars, there are students that we mandate to come because of failing classes, and then we have students who opt to come because they want to work towards something better than where they are. And so some students have used that to self-accelerate in mathematics. We had that the summer before last. And some do it just to keep their skills up, to do their summer works, because they know they will, because they'll be in a supported environment with teachers. So it can be a couple different reasons you're there. We still maintain extra help for students at the middle school level. It's an hour a week, but our teachers, quite honestly, are here way more than 1 hour a week with our students after school, but they do that. And we do work on making sure they're placed appropriately. This year, again, we will be looking at the enrollment criteria for advanced classes. The last time we ran the data on that was 3 years ago when I was middle school principal, to come up with what seems to be appropriate levels of success in 6th and 7th grade to determine, hopefully, predicting success if accelerated. It's time to look at that data again. And I know that Mr. Barnett and Dr. Lenahan are going to partner on that work this year to see, are we on track with how we're doing that, or do we need to reevaluate that? Other things, we have more. Oh yes, so this is one that you'll hear the results of. 2 years ago in 6th grade, we took the 2 classes. We used to have one called English and one called Language Arts, because 6th graders do not take a world language like Italian or Spanish. Right? That starts in 7th grade. So it's an extra period of the day. And they used to have 2 classes, which were not taught by the same person and were not the same groupings of students. One was more of the mechanics of writing and vocabulary and grammar, and one was more the literature-based work. And so 2 years ago, we said, well, how about they're the same exact kids so we can continue later in the day with where we are. And we were able to create that 2 school years ago, but they couldn't have the same teacher. The staffing didn't quite work. Last year is the first year that it was the same students and the same teacher repeating. And so you'll see results of how the testing came out of that. But we found that to be a pretty powerful model. It's just, the same group gets to pick up again later in the day, continue to work, and blending those learnings of mechanics and understanding. So we're pretty happy with that. Independent reading program was created last year. Some students were pulled out of some extra gym classes if they needed a little bit. It was all at the building level, nothing required. But that was one thing that Ms. Amon brought in last year to do a little more support in that. Team meetings continue at the middle school to really address student needs. So some K-8 things that we do for all of these kids in both buildings. We continue to do our universal diagnostics. So 3 times a year at Cottle, twice at the middle school. Students are asked to perform on the STAR Renaissance assessment in reading and in math. And for some students, we now have 3-4 years worth of data to look at, and it can help us break students into new groups. It can help us see, well, where are they struggling? What should we be working on? And Mr. Cuglietto will be telling you some things that he has done with that work. We continue to do that data analysis, just said that, and we adjust program. We adjust lessons based on what we learn off of this. So we took some time last year with faculty meetings, some extended day meetings, and we focused on 2 things in big chunks last year. Was writing, and how do we serve those? ENL stands for English as a New Language. Could be a third, that's why we don't call it English as a second language anymore. Could be someone's 3rd or 4th language. So English as a new language for all teachers, because our students who are English language learners still go to their regular class when they're not in their special classes for English language learners. So how do we support our entire faculty in helping children whose first language is not English? So we focused on those things last year, and we continued our model of peer tech support for technology. So that writing came from the Writing Revolution. Dr. Judith Hockman, we had a significant partnership with them last year, and continuing it in a significantly modified way this year. So this year we hired our own writing curriculum liaisons. Thank you to the board for supporting that initiative to bring our in-house expertise up to speed, and they now work with the folks at the Writing Revolution. But last year, again, this is what we did last year, was a significant partnership with them. We differentiate across the classes, and we really worked on Cottle Middle School, High School, and that will be a constant work. And so thanks to Dr. Lenahan, he did a lot of work, especially last year, on getting from 4th through 12th English working together repeatedly throughout the year to make sure that that transition from Cottle into middle into high school on this writing initiative and on reading and on literacy really is making sense. And so that was things that we did in the past. So I think at this point, I'm going to hand it over to our elementary principal, Mr. Cuglietto, to tell you how the data turned out. If you'd like to click the right one.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Albano, Ms. Licio, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Here we go. From the moment I was given an opportunity to review the data, I was very pleased with many of the things that I had a chance to review. For grade 3 English language arts, there's a clear pattern of growth during the course of the past 3 years, but even more so, there's the question of how Cottle School and how Tuckahoe stacks up against all of Westchester County, which means and indicates the very, highest achieving districts and districts that don't achieve at the same level that we do. And in each case, you can see that there are significant differences between how well we performed, our students performed, and frankly, how our teachers performed with respect to other schools in Westchester County. And the topic of significance is very important because we need to define what's significant to us in terms of percentages. Normally, when I work with my staff, we always consider significance somewhere in the ballpark of 8 to 10 points. And so you see when you are essentially achieving 17 points above the county and 15 points above the county and 16 points above the county, there's really something to be proud of, and it tells a story. First, it means that obviously our teachers know the test and they impart that to the students. And look, let's be fair. Every district wants its children to perform at their highest levels. And I think that teachers intrinsically want that also. It's some years the assessments are seem fairer than other years. And let's not forget that by day 3 of an exhaustive testing program, 8, 9, 10-year-old children they start to fade, and it's just a reality of a 3-day testing cycle. So therefore, everyone is really relieved that the commissioner's movement towards a 2-day testing cycle, which implies that there will be fewer short responses and fewer extended responses, which Dr. McDonald and Mr. Barnett, myself, we all seem to think that this is going to lead us towards the days of computerized testing. Okay? All right. So this is grade 3. Next, you'll see grade 4. This is an interesting pattern. First of all, any results in the 70s during the course of the past 5 years with tests constantly changing and levels of difficulty, in my opinion, changing, are good scores. Again, you can see the differences between 15, 16, and 17, and the differences between the county and Tuckahoe schools. So again, even though you may see a dip between 16 and 17, there's still a 12-point advantage over the county itself, which indicates that it was essentially a tough assessment for everyone. Grade 5, and I'm not ashamed to say that grade 5's assessment is a tough assessment, both for English language arts and mathematics. All right, you can see that the numbers have dipped a bit in 16 and then significantly improved in 17, and that tells a story also. And again, if you can, try to calculate from the bar graph the positive difference from the county. So, all in all, for English language arts, I think that the Cottle School community and Tuckahoe schools ought to be very proud of the accomplishments of its children. Honestly, I do not know how many parents have registered test refusal and their children have not tested. I will say to you that with the superintendent's permission, I'd really like to try to minimize, and I think you do also, in terms of test refusal. We'd like that information from all of our students longitudinally. Okay. Now you get to mastery. Mastery is level 4, right? The highest of the possible achievement levels. You can see that in 15, grade 3 did indeed outperform the county. Grade 16, we approach significant positive change from the county. And grade 17, I don't know, just that's the 1 year where our students in grade 3 did not outperform the county. And it's a reality of the ebb and flow of testing data, but it's also a call to our teachers and a call to my office and a call to all of us that we can be better, we can do better, and it's up to myself as building administrator and to our teachers to recognize that this year we need to do things a little bit differently, and we have already. Here's grade 4. You see a bit of a difference in terms of the numbers. Now you're getting into essentially 25%, 28%, 24% at mastery. That tells you a story. It tells a number of interesting stories. And again, in each case, outperforming Westchester County. And grade 4's assessment is also a very difficult assessment. They're never, you always want the test to be fair, and sometimes at the end of the cycle, sometimes we don't feel that the tests are as fair as they could be or should be for essentially 9-year-old hearts beating in those bodies. Here's grade 5. And if your eyes are drawn to 2017, yes, indeed, that's a remarkable number. And it indicates all kinds of things. When teachers sit, when educators sit and look at this kind of information, it tells us all kinds of stories and possibilities. Because there is no doubt that it was a strong cohort of kids who have been well taught, who have been able to achieve to a very high level on a difficult test. And it also tells us that our teachers understand the test. They have history with the test. As they're preparing their children, they have a good idea as to how to vary their instruction to best instruct their children who are struggling and their children who are at the higher levels of achievement. Now we go to mathematics. I think it's safe to say that mathematics scores throughout the county are a little bit higher in the areas of mathematics. It's just my impression going through the data each and every year. And in fairness, the math assessments are given in 2 languages, so if indeed you have youngsters whose first language is Spanish, they can take the tests in Spanish. That may not be an issue here, but it just tends to skew the data, or not skew the data, but it just tends to have math achievement data a bit higher. So you can see that during the course of the past 3 years, grade 3 has a lot to be proud of, and again, in each case, there are positive differences, significant in both 15 and 16. Grade 4, again, a tough mathematics assessment for 9-year-old children. You can see that the scores have been good over the course of the past 5 years of the New York State testing program. And again, there's a great deal to be thankful for and a great deal to celebrate in those numbers. And ladies and gentlemen, if you just look at the comparison between Tuckahoe students and the county, which again include some of the highest profile districts perhaps in America, you can see that our children, your students, our children have stacked up pretty well. Grade 5, which in my opinion is the most difficult assessment of all, our students have more than held their own. In fact, I think those statistics are pretty strong. Does it mean that our ability to teach and prepare our children cannot get better? That's our goal always, is to be better. Are we going to try and do some things this year that perhaps have not been done in the past, such as bringing in the architects of the data warehouse through the Lower Hudson Regional Information Center to talk to our teachers about what kinds of opportunities they have by being conversant with the data warehouse. This is something that I have shared with our superintendent from the very first days, and we continue to roll out through our own internal professional development. Now we get to mastery. All right, you see a difference between 15, 16, and 17. And again, in 17, you'll see that we were a bit below the Westchester statistic. But ladies and gentlemen, 28%, 1 out of every 4 students at level 4 is something to be proud of and to celebrate. I think that there are districts I think there are many districts that wish they had those kinds of numbers. All right. "57% of students at mastery is an unbelievable number. It's good to just take a moment and try and internalize. 57%, 55%, and listen, 39% means that 2 out of every 5 of your students are at mastery on a difficult assessment. And so, again, there's a lot to be proud of there, and in each case, significance over the county. And there you see very good numbers. Again, 1 out of every 4, essentially 1 out of every 4 of our students at mastery level. And in each case, it supersedes the county. Now, that's a lot of data for somebody who doesn't do this every single day or kind of live and breathe with it, but I assure you that there's a great deal to be proud of in this information. And again, there are no excuses. Our teachers understand and realize that we can and should always try to exceed what we've done in the past. I think the key is, and I think you'll agree, that the key is a trend that continues to go up. Not a bell-shaped curve, but a curve that I guess one could call it an exponential curve. Okay? One of the things that Mr. Albano and Dr. McDonald have supported is the formulation of what's called an RTI handbook or set of guidelines. This is a really important document for any district to own and to publish and to have available to parents. And it sets the guidelines, benchmarks, and gates for all of our students as they go from kindergarten through grade 5. Because in the end, the children who deserve additional supports should get them. And that is a process and a procedure that should be governed by understood and established guidelines. And we're almost there. I'm hoping that by Christmas break, holiday break, we will have a document that the superintendent will support, Dr. McDonald will support, and then it can find itself on our website if indeed that is appropriate. Tuckahoe Schools has this gift of professional development each and every month, 2 hours during the extended faculty meetings. And each and every month, we have the opportunity to either bring in guest speakers or to have grade levels work on areas that they feel need their attention. It's not a question of doing paperwork. It's a question of professional development. And this year, one of the goals, one of the objectives of our building is to improve our understanding of student data and improve our understanding of the assessments historically, now, and what we think that the assessments will ask of our students moving forward. Part of that is talking to the people who study student data from a tri-county viewpoint, and those are our friends from the RIC. And on January 17th, we'll have representatives, we'll have the architects come in and address our 3 through 5 staff, and during the course of the first semester, I have been the point guard for them. Last month, Mary Lynn Collins from the Regional Information Center came to train our staff and share with our staff the benefits of the Star Renaissance program that we currently use for benchmarking 3 times per year, which is a mandate of New York State in terms of having a benchmarking instrument. However, the software that we support, that we pay for, that we support, also has progress monitoring capabilities that most of our teachers need to relearn. So Mary Lynn Collins will be in on December the 11th. She'll meet with our grade levels in intimate discussions, and hopefully after that meeting, we can start to move to a place where progress monitoring becomes a, let's just say, a way of life and part of our lexicon that we commit to. Because at the end of the day, there's no such thing as a RTI process that does not include progress monitoring, and I think that that's one area where we can just do better, and we know it, and so we are working toward that. Okay, wasn't sure where the slides ended. Thanks, everyone.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to take a slightly different format on the slides. We're going to take a look at one grade at a time, both ELA and math. I thought that might be a nice change of pace and help you to kind of wrap your mind around it. So I've been working, this is my 15th year now in middle school, and I'm often just kind of perplexed by the trends that I have seen over the years, and especially in comparing elementary school performance with middle school performance. You're going to see some of that come up here on the slides. One thing that is interesting, I'm not sure if you can see, if everybody can see, but on the bottom, under each one of the sets of data, you've got the year, and then you've got a smaller number in parentheses. And the smaller number is telling you how many students tested. And I think it's interesting to kind of keep an eye on that number as I move through these slides over the years that we're looking at here. So framing again, we're looking at 6th grade. This is not one cohort of kids. This is 6th grade in each year. So different kids, but this is how our 6th grade does at the middle school. You can see that, I think across the board there was some adjustment in 2013 and 14 to the Common Core and the new exams. And then you can see some growth from 2015, 16, and 17 with proficiency levels up in the high 50% range. It's interesting, in 2015, only 47 students were tested in that year for whatever reason. Looking at math in the same year, in the 6th grade as well, again, the first year of the Common Core was an adjustment period, but then performance generally in the 50s and high 60s, with 2015 also standing out, 46 kids in that testing group, and performance lagging the county that year. But in the last 2 years, we've exceeded the county in proficiency levels. Then looking at mastery only, so these are students who achieve level 4. You can see our numbers, again, are kind of bouncing around roughly 20%, with the last 2 years, 16 and 17, approaching 30%, and outperforming the county there as well. In math, also we're approaching 30% in 2015, 16 and 17, and slightly, between 7 and 10 points outperforming the county there. Moving on to grade 7 in ELA. Here's where you really start to see some interesting numbers in terms of the number of students who took the test. But we see a dip in 2013, 14, and then I would call it a recovery in 15, 16, and 17. Interestingly, that 2016 cohort only has 38 students testing in it. So I do think as the numbers of students who take a test decreases, we have to be careful about the ways in which we interpret or even generalize the results. I think there becomes a level where so many students are opted out that it has an effect on the validity of the results. And I think you heard Mr. Cuglietto mention that one of the things we're hoping for this year is more participation from our families, our students here at the middle school and throughout the district. The state has made some important adjustments to the way this test is being administered. And the data is useful. It's useful to our teachers. It's useful to the way we look at our district. And I think there's learning for kids, especially in the middle grades. I think there's important learning for, sitting down for a high-stakes test and doing the best you can do. There are plenty of times as kids get older that they're going to be taking high-stakes tests, and it's never fun, but I think it's important for kids to do their best and to get used to that. So that's something that we're going to promote throughout this school year. Moving to 7th grade math. As Mr. Coglietto pointed out, the math scores do tend to be somewhat higher for whatever reason. We have this 2014 dip, and another dip in 2016. 2016 has 36 students tested, so it's hard to know why that dip occurred in that school year. But last year, a recovery with only 55 students testing. So there's room in there for more exploration, more research, of course, but it's always nice to see when our students do well. And the mastery levels here are a little bit lower. Up until last year, in the 10% and below range of mastery in grade 7. Last year, the students performed a little bit higher than that, with mastery levels approaching or at 20%. And here's the similar slide for mathematics. Here, more in the 20s, a dip in 2016 with 36 students tested. In performance last year, approaching 30%, and exceeding the county by about 10%. And then grade 8, 2013, we had strong performance, and then in 2014, much, much lower. The number of students testing decreased dramatically. And the reason for that is in 2013, we had students double testing. We had students in the Regents class who were also taking the Math 8 exam. But the district discontinued that practice because students taking the Regents course are not prepared for the Math 8 test. They do well on it. It's a more advanced class. But it's like testing students in something that they're not studying for. So before me, but the district decided to stop doing that. And more recently, only students who are in the Math 8 course are taking the Math 8 exam. You'll see that the numbers are very low, 40 students in 2014, then 27, 34 in 2016, and last year only 16 students even took this exam in Math 8. And of the 16 students who took it, none of those students reached proficiency with level 3 or level 4. So I think whenever you see a 0, you don't want that. You'd like to see students passing. At the same time, I don't think I know that doesn't represent everyone who's in the course, and I'd be interested to see how everybody in that course did on that test. Hopefully this year we can get better participation and we can get some numbers that include everybody. In terms of my own thinking about the 8th grade and this test, I agree. This is something that we pushed for in my last school district, and I fully agree with not having students take 2 exams. They should take the exam that they're preparing for and the course that they're preparing for. Testing is stressful. Breaking up the Regents course in the beginning of May for 2 days of testing and probably a couple of days of preparing for those tests just takes away from students learning in the algebra curriculum. And so I don't think that's a good idea for our students to do. The downside of not having the students in the Regents class take the Math A test is you end up with results that are not favorable. But I think it's the right decision for our students, and so that's what we have there. In ELA, our proficiency levels in grade 8, these are students scoring level 3 and level 4. Again, we're in the, right around 50%. We're ahead of Westchester County, but not by much. I don't think it's significant in some of those years. 2016 probably is, definitely is. 2017 slightly above the county average, at about 50%, 51%. And our proficiency level in ELA also is, in this 10 to 15% range generally. We're trailing Westchester County here, which is interesting. And I think that's an area that we're looking into in more detail this year to try to figure out what's going on there and try to see how we can improve in that area. Also important to note that our sample size is very small. Last year, 35 students took that ELA test. So that's not a representative sample of our school. And this is our Math 8 mastery level, also very, very low numbers, but as I explained a minute ago, these are not all the students in the building and not even all the students who are in the Math 8 course, so it's hard, I think, to know what we have here with the numbers that we've got. A couple of enrichment supports and initiatives that we're working on this school year. We also, like the elementary school, are revisiting our RTI protocol. Work on this has begun. We've started in our faculty meetings and our team meetings looking at the ways that we're supporting kids who are struggling. We have academic support classes in both ELA and in mathematics. Students are put in and taken out of those support classes based on how they're doing throughout the school year. We start with test scores as a starting point, and also we reach out to parents and talk about that decision. But then if we see that there's a student who's struggling in either math or ELA during the course of the year, we'll reach out to parents and we'll put kids in for extra help as the year progresses. And in the same way, we have students who sometimes are in that class for a marking period. They start doing very well. The teachers feel like they actually don't need that extra class, and we can take some kids out of that support class as well. So it's a fluid situation. Ongoing, and I'm not sure that we mentioned this yet, but curriculum review and reevaluating the way that we're instructing what students are doing in the 50 minutes or the 100 minutes that they're in each class each day, I think is the place to make the greatest possible impact. And I think that students being assigned to support classes is important, and it helps catch kids up and keep kids progressing. But I also think that there's a lot that can happen in the classrooms. So we have initiatives ongoing in the classrooms that we're working on this year. Teachers, teaming and trying to make the delivery of daily instruction as good as it possibly can be. Also trying new things. I think keeping it fresh, and I think it's important for the teachers and for the students to be exposed to new things through their classes. So we're working on that as well. We've trained teachers, a number of teachers this year in the Just Words program. This is a reading program, and we found it to be very helpful for a select group of students. There we go.
My slide. Thank you. So just to sort of pull together some other things that we're doing with data so that you'll know what else we're looking at. It was mentioned that one of the important things to do is to look longitudinally at this data. Every year we present it by grade level, which means the kids are different in each of those bars. Because it's always third graders, so it's the next set of third graders, right? Each of those bars. But what we have started spending time on now that we have this 5 years since this assessment came in is let's follow the third grade from 5 years ago. What did they look like in fourth, fifth, sixth, and see what do we see there. Especially because we are such a small district, one grade level can really have a significantly different profile than another. I can have, just from the example of IEPs, I could have a grade level with 6 IEPs and another one with 26 IEPs. And so the composition is just very different. And so if you follow a group that is not identical, because we do have students moving in and out, but we're not a hugely transient population here in Tuckahoe. That's another lens through which we are working on the data and looking at how do we help those children, do we see a common deficit over time? Do we see something we can target? Is there something about informational text that seems to keep coming wrong? They're not getting it right year after year. Well, then what do we have to change in instruction for that particular group of students? So we're doing that work together in the buildings. And another thing that we're going to be looking at is our analysis of our data with other schools. Who should we be comparing to? The state, you may recall, used to give us a list of similar schools. And so we would have this presentation not against our county, but it would have like 10 bars per group. And they don't provide us that anymore, so we do not know if they are anything similar to us. And some of them were located in very, northwestern New York. We never even heard of them. But because of their size, their socioeconomic, their number of special ed kids, they were defined by the state as similar. And as we looked at that set this year, we said it doesn't make sense for us. So we're going to spend time as a team to look at, well, then what does make sense? Who else should we be looking at? And if they are outperforming us, let's talk to them about that. And what do they have in place? What can we learn from other districts that may be ones we should be benchmarking against? So we're going to do that work as well this year. Were two things that we're looking at in terms of looking ahead with data analysis. So that's what we have to share with you this evening. We're happy to take any questions at all. If you want to go back up front, board members, we'd be happy to address anything you may
I have a quick question. So I notice on all the graphs we see level 3 and 4 in mastery, but we don't see anything about level 1 and 2. I don't know if that's because we're supposed to assume that when there's an increase that's coming from level 1 and level 2 up to level 3 and level 4, but that could be a little bit off-putting, right? Because you can have a year where you can have a dip in mastery, and those students are probably dipping down to level 3 and 4, so you see an increase in level 3 and 4, and you assume it's coming from level 1 and 2, but maybe not. Or am I misinterpreting that?
Slight misinterpretation. So the 4s are in the 3 and 4.
Oh, so mastery
they're
is
inside.
4.
Yes, mastery
Right.
is just 4s. So the first sets that you saw were the 3s and 4s together, and then
Right.
the 4s were out of that. Which portion of that were 4s?
Got it,
Yeah.
okay. So when we see an increase from one year to the other in level 3, 4, that increase is pulling from 1 and 2. It must be.
Yes, because whatever's left is who did not get up to a 3, and 3 is defined by the state as proficient. So if you've got 65% at 3 and 4, it means you have 35% that are not
Right,
proficient.
okay.
Yeah, they're all in the one.
Okay, understood, that makes sense. And the other question I had or comment was, do we do anything, you said longitudinal analysis, do you do anything to analyze these test results to what the children are getting on their report cards? Is there anything that's done to see if the results on their tests are correlating with their actual grades in the class?
We have done that in smaller chunks, but not across the 3-8 spectrum. One of the challenges is I don't have all this data for every child. And so I don't have a matching set of report cards and state for all the kids. And we also, depending on whether you're talking middle school or elementary school, it's a very different grading structure as
Right,
well.
I understand, yeah.
So we'd have to figure out what would that correlation be. But yes, it's good work to take a
I guess
look
I'm
at.
just
For those
trying
we do have.
I'm trying to
are
wonder
for. Yep.
how much of a sense do you get that these tests results are jiving with how the kids are doing in the classes?
Right. In some
Is there
cases, not at all.
disparity?
And in some cases, yes. So it's very different than when we look at the comparison in the high school, which we'll do in the spring once the Regents exam scores are not embargoed, because those are linked to their courses, right? Those are their final exams for their courses. So we see a lot more correlation there because we're preparing for that. That is our final, and we would expect to see that match. And in 3 through 8, we take these exams in April and May. They're not linked to our grades. They're not linked to our course in terms of being able to move on. And so there's even a motivational difference there. That can never be quantified, that we have to think about. No, it is good work, and we've done it for populations, but not as a full system. So we can certainly think about doing that.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
On that point, I'm sorry. On that point, is there something that we could use for the 3 through 8 grades to come up with some sort of standard that we could look at a similar type of analysis on a greater population of the students?
Well, we have our STAR, are you looking for a different assessment that we
Yes.
have? Yes, we have our STAR assessments. So those are assessments that are taken by every child 3 times a year at the elementary school. So we can do work with looking at that and comparing it to report card data is maybe what you're thinking about?
Yeah, I think, like as Peter's saying, that because of, we don't have the full participation of the students, like I like the trend to see that over the 5 years. That was nice to see how that changed from year to year. But because it's not all the students, it's not a complete representation
Right.
of the whole curriculum. But I understand because of the size, it's going to change. So if there was another way to assess it, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, and we do have other measures, for assessment. STAR is one of them that we use. That really helps us, though, drive instruction, because as opposed to equating it to report card grades, because that's diagnostic initiatives. Okay, where are we now? How can we regroup the students? How can we look at what's happening? Where are the individual deficits for students so that we inform instruction and get some change happening? It's really what we use that for.
No, I was glad to see that you're tracking to see over the 5 years to track one group of students, because
Yeah,
I
we
think
look
that's
at that.
very good information. I was wondering too, are you looking at to see if kids are level 1, are they moving to level 2? And the ones who are level 2, is that being looked at as well?
Right, and one of the populations that I focused on when I was middle school principal are the high 2s and the low 3s, because they're very easy to flip-flop the next year, right? And so what are we doing? Just one more question right would make you proficient, one more question wrong would make you not proficient, right? So that high 2, low 3, we have through the lyric, they have reports for us for those kids to see. And what I did, and Mark does it as well now, we basically have a report that I call the low-hanging fruit report, which is not its official name. But what it gives us is for each child who's in that band of, hey, come on, let's make sure we can be proficient, the items that they got wrong that a typically passing proficient child was able to get right. So they should be the very next ones they might be able to get, and distribute those to teachers and say, okay, what do we see here? What are those concepts that these children, if they just had a little extra help in that area, that they could then master it, so the next year when it comes up, they would then be able to be proficient. So yeah, that's a population we have looked at.
I think it's interesting because we're all saying something similar. I actually wrote down when Mr. Barnett said the cohort of the same students, and then that was on your
Right,
next
that's what we're
screen.
doing now. Yep.
Because I think that is so interesting, seeing that group of students, how they are doing year over year. I found myself, while you were talking, kind of going
Trying to go
back,
through,
like,
right.
okay, this year, they're in 6th grade, they were the 2016 students of last year's 5th grade, and how did they do? One thing that I did check to see, and I was happy to see, was that in past years, from 5th to 6th grade, we did see a drop.
Right.
And I did not see
And it's
that.
not there
And I was happy to see that. And even though the numbers are low, this is what we have to look at, and so this is the tool we have. I'd like to just make a point that both principals who presented tonight are new to us this year. So I'm sure it was quite a challenge for you, but also a fresh set of eyes, I think, is something very valuable also. And you're looking at it through a different lens, and you can bring something to that we didn't have before, so I appreciate that. Other than that, I find the numbers just frustrating, honestly, because where we see growth, we see a decrease, and it's frustrating, and we all know that. And no matter how small of a group of students they are, when you see a 0%, that's 16 of our students who we know can be doing better, and what can we be doing to support that. So to me, I don't care how small of a group they are. That's who we are, and that's the challenge here. And it's always been our challenge. It's going to be our challenge. So I think that when we all know it and accept that that's what it is, and we know, what the expectations are, then we just have to do our best by every student. So that's your challenge. That's, what we will support, whatever you bring to us to get us there. But otherwise, the numbers are frustrating. I was happy to hear that it was going to be this year two-day testing. What we need to do now is to communicate that out to the parents, because they need to know that. And so that's, our job, that's your job, that's a principal's job, that's, that is our job to communicate that, because I think that will make a difference in the decision parents make. And it is the parents' decision to make, but again, it's an important tool to give us the guidance that you all need to make the decisions you do. So I think we just need to do a better job of communicating the changes that have been made in the testing. That's a very, very significant one, and that really needs to get out there.
I have another question. With the STAR assessments, is data like that available that, like to see just like this, to see?
Well, STAR assessment is at the individual student level, is what we do, and we work on
Are you
it
looking at to see like measuring growth?
for individual children. Yes, we use it for diagnostic purposes for individual children, not for cohorts.
Yes.
And I was wondering too, if there's like common threads that you're seeing, that maybe there are many students that have the same sort of, I guess, struggles.
We have not done an analysis STAR to state, no. We have not done that.
No, not to
We
the state,
use,
but
yeah,
if you
in terms
do
of.
STAR assessment, are
Yeah,
there large numbers?
STAR assessment, we can look at our whole group of kids and say, okay, what are the things that, because it even can help us group children. Here's a suggested
right.
grouping for your class based on how they performed. This group can work together because this is what their emerging, it calls it, their emerging skill. What is the next thing they're gonna work on? Here's the emerging skill for this group. Yes, that we can do, yes, but in terms of linking it across the state assessment data, we have not done that.
And if I could just add, I think two important points that I'm hearing in many different ways. So first, just to differentiate, this is a summative assessment, which I think most people understand. The STAR assessment is a formative assessment, an assessment for learning. And our teachers and our administrators are using that data, and again, you heard at the elementary school 3 times per year, at the middle school 2 times per year. But they are looking at those individual students. And, I was part of the process to adopt STAR, and I want to say I think we're at least 4 or 5 years in, and it's a normed assessment, which, it has a huge norm population, which I think is important for people to understand. It goes nationwide, and in some cases, on particular grade levels, you may have several 100,000 students taking that assessment. The more students that take it, the larger the normed population, the more accurate it is. So it's incredibly valuable. I applaud both of our principals, because you heard Mr. Cuglietto and Mr. Barnett talk about working with that data. They've brought in experts. I know we had someone here on one of the conference days, one of the extended days, and I think we have an upcoming session with Mary Lynn Collins. But that is really good work. And, that's not something that we usually present publicly, because again, as Dr. McDonald points out, we're working with individuals. The other thing, Michelle, I think, and I heard everyone mention this, we really, really need to encourage parents to allow their children to participate. Now, you see a trend, and there's like a natural process here where at grades 3, 4, and 5, just again, a quick estimate, I'm seeing somewhere between 80 and 90% of the kids participating. But when you get up to 8th grade, it appeared to me like 2/3 are not sitting for the test. So now the data becomes less accurate, and I think, again, living through this implementation, which really was flawed from the beginning, but living through it, I think those children now that are currently maybe in 7th, 8th, or 9th grade, they got hit the hardest, because it was like, here's a new test, and by the way, here's a new curriculum to go with it, or new standards, and it just was not implemented properly. And I think you see that increased refusal, from parents who recognize this was not fair. However, I'm pleased to see, and I'm encouraged by that, the younger children and the parents of the younger children are behind it, because this is so valuable to us, making curriculum decisions. Pretty soon, as Lee mentioned, we're starting a budget process. We're going to allocate resources to help improve student performance, through PD, through new curriculum, new programs. And our administrators need that information. So, Michelle, I think you made a very good point, and I think all of us together will talk about this and encourage parents to allow children to participate.
I wanted to, on that note, when you're talking about the older kids, the opting-out rate going higher, how that's affecting the scores of the kids that are taking it. What I mean by that is when they're seeing all their friends opting out, are they not taking it as seriously? You know, are they sitting for the test and saying, well, half the kids are already taking this test, so I'm not really gonna do my best. And I don't know how much of that factor is there,
Be able to quantify
but
that.
you wonder if
It's real,
you,
Pete.
it's real, right?
I think it's
Yeah, so that's,
No,
That's
no
another-
question. Yeah,
yeah.
it's not as serious when 2/3 of the kids
yeah,
are
they
not
just don't take it that
sitting and-
seriously, and they're just
Gee,
mailing it in.
why do I have to sit for this
Right.
test?
Friends
Right.
sitting in the cafeteria watching a movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we know what our opt-out rate is in comparison to the rest of the district? I mean, sorry, the county?
The rest of the county, I do
Yeah.
not have those numbers with me, but they can be looked at.
I'd be curious to know
Yeah,
how we
looked at
stack up.
We're
The
on
last
the
year,
high side.
that was
On the
our
high side,
first
right?
year of significant opt-out, and we looked at that, and it was kind of all over the map. You know,
Yeah.
some that had 2% opt-out, some that had 70% opt-out, you know, in terms of refusal. And so we were kind of in the mid-pack. I didn't do the analysis on this year's data, I did on the year before, and we were sort of that year in the middle of the pack of who was refusing, and
Right.
we could do it again, sure.
You know, and then as far as similar districts and like districts, and I know for years that's been, that we didn't understand why the state was giving us some of the schools that they were comparing us to. And it's definitely a challenge because we are very unique, but I think sometimes when you think about it, just from a homeowner's point of view, I'm going to buy a home, and where, you know, what districts are like this or in the proximity, and while we are so different than some of our neighboring districts for many reasons, but that's a real thing. You know, if you just go 3 blocks over, you're in a different school district. If you go, you know, into Chester Heights and you can go into Pelham, you're in a different school district. So I think when people are making that decision, you know, that might, you know, it does play a role because as unfortunate as it is, people do look at these things because just as it's, you know, there is no other tool, and so they're looking at that. So I know it's difficult because we can't, you know, the numbers, the enrollment is different, the demographics could be different, but it is also, I think, something when you take that on to look at,
Yes,
maybe
we'll
something
look
to
at.
consider.
One last question, just if you can clarify for me. I think I have it, but I'm not positive. It sounds like this is really used to help with guidance, I heard, and curriculum, where you're able to look at the tests, look at the questions, and then consider new approaches and what things the children are missing and really focus on them so they can improve. And then with the STAR assessment, I understand, if I understand what Carl was saying, that sounded more like it's a progress type report of how the students have progressed. Do you get the same type of information from those assessments as far as what the students are missing, what they could work on to be better, or is it different what you receive from the results of one versus the other?
Well,
Well, I
I'll
mean,
let
they
Ellen
do
answer
have
it.
different
They
reporting
are different.
structures, and so they're not like I can put them next to each other and see the same exact
No,
thing.
not to
But
compare
both
them, but
tools, right,
what you
both
can get
tools
out of the
have a
results.
capability in reporting to tell us what a student's strengths and weaknesses are on that assessment, yes. And you'll get different information because they're taken in very different formats, very different reasons. You know, one's on a computer in a classroom in a class period 3 times a year. One is we all sit down in a very formal structure and take a state test. So even just the way they're taken are very different, and what they're for, as Carl was talking about, that formative and driving and guiding instruction versus summative, did you learn the stuff you're supposed to learn? But yes, both of them can give us, if I'm getting your question correctly, please tell me if I'm not, can give us information about strengths and weaknesses for individual children that we can work on. The state gives us more information on what we can do for program. STAR doesn't really give us help on program. It's not directly aligned to our program. It's aligned to, national normed, standards. So we get a little more information on what should we do for our program from our state test results, and more what we can do for individual children off of STAR.
That was the question.
Is that, okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on with our agenda, and now this is the first recognition of the audience for agenda items. If there's anyone who would like to speak on anything on the agenda?
I could speak about the presentation that we
Yes,
just
of
had, right?
course.
Okay. Just a couple of things. One, Dr. McDonald, in the points where you, in the elementary school, how you said that the school district supports the learning in science, you had listed the Science Fun Day, which is actually a PTA-run event.
Totally PTA developed, totally PTA run. Other than the district letting us use the building, they're not really, the teachers are not involved in it, the school's not involved in it, and I just wanted
Thank you for
to,
clarifying. Yeah, it's a wonderful experience for kids that you provide.
you know, it's a lot of hard work for the PTA, so I just want to
Thank you for clarifying.
point that out. Also, for the ENL students, how are we exactly supporting all of the staff? Because I am in a classroom often where there are 2 children who speak no English at all. And I see the teacher struggling a lot, and I see the students who don't speak the English struggling, and I see the other students in the classroom struggling to help those kids. So I just want a better understanding of how we're supporting the teachers with children who speak absolutely no English. And in this case, it is an Asian child and a Spanish-speaking child.
Would you like me to address that, or would the board like me to address that at this time, or no?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we've partnered with the Hudson Valley Arbor, which is the regional English language learner network, and for the first time last year, brought them in to do direct professional development for all of our staff in terms of how do they help address the needs of English language learners in their classroom. To my knowledge, this district has never approached that from such a direct way. So we did that in the spring in grades 6 through 12, and we did it this fall with Cottle, and brought in that team, and our staff gave us amazingly fabulous responses to that, to be able to say, now I finally feel like I have some tools, some things I can do to do that. We also provided our teachers, those students who do need that language support when their actual English as a English to speakers of other languages teacher are there. Some of our rooms have additional iPads that are using apps. For instance, there's a couple of them that we use a lot, but one of our Google apps, if you use it on an actual pad, when Google Translate as an app, not as a website, you put it on top of, using the camera, on top of a worksheet the teacher's doing, and on the screen will be the translated version for the child, so that they can actually read what they're being asked to do in their own language. So we put some of those in place in a classroom this year for children who they're called entering, those who do not speak English at all, and they have more intensive services outside the classroom. To my knowledge, it's the first time we've done that K-12 for all teachers as opposed to just those who are certified to teach speakers of languages other than English.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Also, for the ELA scores in Cottle, for 4th grade, it's disappointing that it went down, only because those are students who, since kindergarten, have been taught Common Core. And it just, when you say it tells a story, it does tell a story. And I've been in so many of the classrooms, and I know our teachers are so wonderful. It just makes me ask, what's going on? Why are they going down? Because I know that what they're being taught, I love the writing revolution. I like reading wonders. What else is going on that would make the scores go down? Because it is frustrating when you see it. Because you know that there's just so much learning going on, and it's just so frustrating to see the scores go down, especially for children who have always had Common Core. It was more understanding when it was, this was just dropped in our laps. But 4th grade is a grade that was just raised this way. Same thing.
To respond to that, or no?
If you have something to say, sure.
We could do a follow-up, too.
There are things that I can't talk about in terms of personnel with 4th grade at last year, right before state testing. So, but we had some unique illnesses and unique injuries that caused disruption to the children. I do not know the impact. We will never be able to quantify whether that had part of this impact or not. But the real work is looking at the data and saying, okay, as a team, and that's what Mr. Cuglietto's doing with the 4th grade team, and looking at it and say, what's real here? What is it that we can improve? Because whether we have a reason or not a reason for that, it is a drop in performance. and what is going to happen to catch that up, regardless of who's in the classroom, regardless of what's going on in that dynamic. What are they going to do? And that's what they're working on as a team. So there's no one answer to that question.
I just wanted to say that I actually had a fourth grader last year, and her teacher was one of the teachers who did had an illness, but the tests were already over by that point, except for the science test, which the kids did great. Otherwise, all the teachers were there, and the fourth grade teachers, especially this teacher, is a knock-out-of-the-park great teacher. So I don't think it was the illnesses that were the problem. I think there's, and there is a trend, and where we say we don't want it to be a bell curve, it seems to be a bell curve. And I just want to see what else is going on that could maybe raise the scores. As far as the 8th grade, do we know, it was really hard to see the numbers of kids who took the test, but how many of those kids in the 7th, when they were in 7th grade the year before, took the tests compared to when they were in 8th grade?
Yeah, the code just in the year 7th grade math follows 36 kids. So double the number of kids.
Double the number of kids, okay. And it's a small class. That class is only about 60 kids. So, and how many of them took ELA versus took math?
ELA 7.
That was 7th, you were
8th grade, yeah.
35.
Double.
Okay, so if 35 of those students felt that they were okay to take the ELA test, and only 16 felt that they should take the math test, and let's say, okay, so we don't make our kids who are in the algebra class take it, so that's probably about 15 kids. I still feel like maybe the low 8th grade was that maybe they didn't feel like they were prepared for it, and so better to not take it than to take it and feel stressed because you're not prepared. And,
I think assuming the reason for it would be inappropriate to assume the reason why those families wrote those letters.
Okay, but it is a possibility that that's the reason why. That they, I know if I'm a big proponent of kids taking the test because I do feel like you will have to take, the very next year you're not going to have a choice. And if my child came to me and said, I'm stressed, I don't feel prepared, I would say, all right, you don't have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, just, sure. I agree that it's hard to know why. It's hard to know. I would not want to connect a family's decision to refuse taking the test with their feeling about preparedness. It is possible, but I don't think without more knowledge of those decisions, I don't think we can make that leap. I can say that it's interesting to see when refusals come in. I think the refusals that come in weeks in advance speak to some kind of planning or conversation that happened at home. But I also see refusals come in like the day before and the night before. And I've always been curious, does that have more to do with peer pressure and kids going home and saying to mom and dad, nobody that I know is even doing this, and so kind of at the last minute that decision gets made. I'm not sure last year how many of the refusals came in at what point leading up to the tests, but I think by us being ahead of this curve and talking to families and talking to parents about these tests and the changes and the reason to take it, hopefully that will help both with people refusing well in advance of the test and people emailing the school the night before the test. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say something because I have a son who's in that grade, and I did see a number of kids. They obviously took the algebra regions. They were doing that, but they were also out of the group of kids who were in that class. By January, half of them pulled out and went back into then grade 8 math. So I wonder how many of them actually took the test. It would be something interesting to look at. Did they decide not to take it because going from half a year being in algebra and the other half then going to grade 8 feeling, oh my God, maybe I don't feel ready. So that would be interesting to see if those kids actually took it.
I think just a general comment is a lot of the questions that, and things that Allison is asking is exactly the work that's going to be done now. And that's exactly what they're looking into. And, to make the assumptions or to know,
Right.
that's the work that is ahead of us now, and we're going to have to work on that now. Is there anything else, Allison? I'm sorry.
I don't, it's not to come down hard on anyone, it's just that I know that there's so much great stuff going on, and I have such huge faith in our teachers and what we're doing, that, unfortunately, like Michelle said, this is what people who are buying into our district look at, and it's just, you don't want that to be the representation. You want the great work that we're doing to shine through. And that's just why I'm giving a hard time, I'm sorry.
If I may, just a comment. I think tonight, the presentation was great, and I think one of the things we wanted to improve upon this year was our communication to the parents. And I think tonight, for me, it was informative. Like, I think, and maybe this was ignorant of me, but I probably never considered the fact that you guys take those results, look at it, and from that, you're going to figure out changes to the curriculum and guidance for what you'll teach with the teachers and what we need to do to help our students. And maybe when parents are home deciding whether or not they want their kid to take the test or not, they're not thinking about that. So maybe with this additional information and the continued ongoing communication, if we continue to do that better, our parents can make informed decisions, and maybe they kind of prod their kid, you know what, take the test. It's good for you to take the test. So I think information that the faculty and administration could share with the public is going to be helpful, because we're busy, we're not always tuned in, we're not dialed in, we're not all teachers, we're not administrators. So that type of information is helpful when we have to make decisions and guide our children.
And that's what comes back to the board. So the recommendations that they'll make now and the work that they do is what they'll bring to us in terms of the types of support and programming that they'll need to raise the numbers and get that, that's the whole full circle of this whole conversation. So thank you for tonight and for your presentation. And, I think obviously a lot of work still ahead of you, and we appreciate what you've done. Thank you. Does anyone else want to add anything else before I go on? Okay, we're going to move on then to the consent agenda. Let me see. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Or is there anything anyone wanted to take out or discuss at all before I do that? No, okay.
I have one
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Pete? Go ahead.
No, I was going to motion. Go ahead.
Just item 5. I'd like to thank the estate of Angela Carapella for their donation, and I was curious, is this something that has been an annual gift, and has it always been used, for SAT prep?
Great question. I'm going to invite Dr. Linehan up. He maybe didn't expect this, but he's got the history, and he's the one that's implementing the program.
As far as SAT, ACT prep, as far as I know, we're the only high school that offers it. We're not allowed to offer it. We checked a couple of years ago out of the budget. So we need private funds. And in the past 2 years, we used the Reward School grant to contract with outside test prep agencies and give our kids the opportunity. And that's what we like to do. Thank you to the Carapella family, Angela Carapella's estate, for giving the high school the gift. And we'd like to use money. Lee, over the summer, myself contacted the lawyer. We got permission, and use funding from the gift to provide a SAT and ACT prep for our juniors.
Is that going to be held here at the school?
No, what we did, we tried that in the past. It wasn't as effective. What we found was most effective was letting the students meet with the test prep agency and set up their own tutorials. What we did we started years ago in large groups, and frankly, that wasn't as effective. And what they want to do is SAT, ACT prep is more effective in small settings and small groups. So last year, what we did, we're in agreement with Jumpstart, which is a local test prep tutoring company. We agreed to provide 7 test prep sessions. This was last year. And we leave it up to the students and the parents to meet with the Jumpstart consultants and decide which they want to take, the ACT or the SAT. And they go to the sessions. And the district then gets billed back for that. And out of the gift funds, if it's approved, we would pay it.
Right.
Rob, thanks. I'm glad I'm sorry, Pete, that you brought it up, because this question was asked at the PTA forum, and a parent did want to know if we were still offering it. And we had said then, and we're able to say tonight publicly, that yes, it is still something that we are able to offer.
I did give the junior parents a status last week when we.
Great, because we needed to also get that out. I would encourage all parents to take advantage. I mean, why not? It is, you know,
Yeah, just as a note on that, yeah, we'd like them to all take advantage. In the past, some of them haven't. I'm going to be candid with you.
I agree.
It's amazing to us. In junior meetings, the guidance counselors, they'll follow up with the parents, and the students don't enroll. So it's free, you know.
Absolutely.
So
And
you
also
can't- you
for
can't beat the-
parents who may be putting their children in other programs, this could supplement. So, you
No
know,
question.
it's never too much, and I think it's a great, and I would agree 100% with the smaller setting and the small groups and the one-on-one instruction, and, you know, highly recommended, and really encourage everyone to please be informed, get the information, and sign your kids up.
We're in the final phase of negotiating with Jumpstart. So that's where we're at, and hopefully we'll get this resolved and then get a letter out shortly if all goes well. Just to let you know, on the Carapella Estate, the rationale behind this is really, you know, we give scholarships, you know, thanks to the estate, and last month you approved the independent reading program for $7,000. And frankly, the point behind this is really to invest in our kids now. If we can get SAT scores, if we can get them reading at a higher level, let the colleges give them the money, give them the scholarships. And then, you know, so really that's the whole point behind it. And not to have it in a bank account collecting interest, but basically let's get the kids all set up and let them go get scholarships from outside agencies or colleges or universities. So that's the rationale behind it.
And this amount, Doctor, would cover everybody if everybody wanted to do it.
Well,
Right?
Faith and I went through the analysis last year's, and we have a little bit of a cushion there,
Okay.
which would not be used, obviously. So we picked that amount as a safety. You know, if we get an overflow, we may come back to you for $1,000 more or something, to be honest with you.
Let's
But-
hope you do.
Yeah, okay, I like that. Oh, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle and Carl, item number 7, I know there was some mention about parents that had seniors about purchasing certain jerseys and things like that.
Yes.
Would this affect that? Like, do we want to pull this out?
You know, I'll defer to Ms. Lou. I believe Mr. Goldberg spoke with you about some very old uniforms and stuff that he's trying to, you know, just make more efficient use of the storage space that we have here. Do you have more of a history on it, Lee?
All I know is that he felt that these were really of no use to the district, but I certainly can talk to him about ways that we might dispose of them, that if
Right.
parents did want to take advantage of purchasing them.
Well, then I would say before, you know, if he's saying in what manner is he going to dispose of them if there's an opportunity for students who might, you know.
Well, typically, you just offer them for public sale, and so
Okay.
if that were the case, then anybody could take advantage of that. So I could work with him on that if that's something that the board was
Do they
interested
know
in.
which, like from which sports, how many from each? and
Well, it's
jerseys and
itemized
things like
here.
Yeah,
It's all
it's itemized.
here.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, if you have more recent information, sure.
Well, just, you know, he spoke with me about it today, just briefly, yeah, that my understanding is from the language of this motion is that they first will be offered for sale.
Okay.
Right, and if there are no interested purchasers, then he will work on a donation, so that they can be clothing for
Right, of
those
course.
who
Oh, so
don't need
he's
them. But
all
yes,
over it. He's
yes, so
anxious.
that's the intention is first sale, and in my mind, I saw jerseys all over a table. People could come in and see if their kid's number from back in 1972 is here, or what, or their own number. Right, if they really wanted it, that there would be a sale first.
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so do we have a motion for the consent agenda? I think that was Pete, second. Daj, discussion, we just discussed. All in favor? Okay. Oh, sure, okay. Okay, we're just going to move ahead, if you don't mind, under personnel. We have someone here in our audience who's been patiently waiting.
With his wife.
So we're going to go to personnel number 13. Okay, appoint .6 music teacher. Is there a motion? Daj, second. Rob, discussion? Carl, did you want to discuss that?
Well, all I would like to say is that I've had the pleasure now of getting to know Charles over
Oh,
the
I'm sorry, I
past.
didn't read that resolution.
Want to read it first before
Sure,
discussion?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's do this
Resolved,
the right
I'm
way.
sorry. Resolved on recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Charles Duchateau to a .6 temporary appointment as teacher of music commencing November 21st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018 on a Step 7 BA of the TTA salary schedule. Mr. Duchateau holds internship certification in music. Now, let me do it again. Is there a motion? Pete, second, Daj, discussion. There you go, Carl, I'm sorry.
So my comments are that I've had the pleasure of getting to know Charles over the past couple of years. He has been providing what I consider to be a truly outstanding level of music instruction for the middle school students. His program continues to expand, and he now is teaching students into our high school. And anyone in this community that has had the pleasure to attend one of our concerts is very familiar and knows how high the quality is. I think he's just been able to raise the bar on music in our district. I was thrilled when he decided to pursue his official teaching certification. This is a man who has over 25 years of professional experience as a conductor and musician on Broadway, and his wife as well. They are a fantastic team, and his contributions go well beyond his teaching, because he together they've brought in a panel of Broadway experts to speak with our kids, and I was just so impressed. I remember last year we had attorneys and lighting experts and performers, as well as musicians, and here for our students to have an intimate conversation, a question and answer, and to learn about all the opportunities that are available, just 25 minutes south of us in the great city of Manhattan. So he brings so much to the table, and I am thrilled that we're able to bring him on in a more permanent way, and I think this is a very, very strong recommendation to this Board of Education.
Absolutely agreed. All in favor? Congratulations. Thank you.
Come shake hands.
Congratulations. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Go home now. Take care.
I know that you went to look. All right, let's see where we are. Okay, business of the board. Reading of a policy. First reading of a policy. Lauren, is this, my first question, okay. This is a policy, so we don't have to motion on it. This is first reading. First reading. And my question is this a mandated change? This is policy number 0100, equal opportunity and non-discrimination. So are these, there's the highlighted policies that are there. It's on our website if anyone wants to take a look and have any comments, any information they want to bring back to us. We will read this 2 more times before we adopt it. Were there any board comments on it?
Liaisons. I mean, I would just add simply, this is to be compliant with OCR recommendations. It's to make our information, particularly on the school's website, accessible to all, even those with disabilities. Dr. McDonald, in addition to all the other hats that she wears, has agreed to take the lead. She'll work with Lauren Truhl to make sure we are in compliance once the policy is established. And I think this is certainly a positive thing for the district and for people with disability to access information.
Okay. All right, so again, that will be there. It'll be on our website, and we will read that 2 more times before we adopt it. Number 2 is to adopt a policy. Resolve to adopt amended policy 5405. Is there a motion? Rob, second. Pete, discussion? Okay, this is now the adoption of the policy. It's been on our website. We've just had it open for discussion our last 3 meetings. So Lauren, nothing else came forward, right? Anything from the public? Nothing. Okay, all in favor? Number 3, corrective action plan. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, following a review by its audit committee, approves the district's correction action plan in response to the external audit. Is there a motion? Pete, second. Rob, discussion.
Just a quick question, I think, just for education for all that are involved. As a member of the audit budget committee, we had ODMD came in, who's our accountants, and they reviewed our return from last year. And part of that is they identify some things that need to be addressed or fixed. Lee, maybe you could help me here and just explain it a little better than that, and identify what the items were and what we've done to correct them.
Okay, sure, there are 2. And the first one is the fact that the district has an excess fund balance in its school lunch cafeteria fund. The state allows us to keep 3 times our operating expenses in a fund that we can hold for use only in the cafeterias or for our lunch program. We have more than that, and so each year the state asks us for a corrective plan as to what we'll do with that excess fund, and we have informed the state that we plan to hold on to those extra funds and use them for hopefully an upcoming capital project. So we can channel those monies towards improvements in our cafeterias, and the state is generally fine with that answer to that recommendation. And then the second one is, excuse me, to better segregate our employees in the business office in terms of things that they do to make sure that the segregation of duties allows us to make sure there's no fraud ever committed. And in a small district like ours, we don't have a lot of employees to segregate lots of functions around. So what we recommend back to our auditors and as a way to better utilize that is to, for example, to make sure that no fictitious employees are ever entered into our payroll system. Each time we go through payroll, I personally audit every change that's made to the payroll system that the payroll clerk has entered, and I look at the board resolutions to make sure they conform to the board resolutions, and then I sign off on them each payroll, every single payroll review. So things like that, as well as vendor inputs. We have forms now that we've instituted in the business office that if we input a new vendor into our system, it has to be reviewed as to why, and then someone else besides the person who enters it has to sign off on it. So using those kinds of procedures, even though we don't have multiple people in the office to share the responsibilities, we can make sure that we're paying attention to what's being done and have an audit control if anyone should ask to see that. So those are our 2 suggestions in response, and then I would imagine that our auditors will approve.
Thank you, Lee.
Mm-hmm.
All in favor? Number 4, approve an agreement. Resolve to approve an agreement with Dr. Carlos Sotolongo for psychiatric evaluations and consultations at a rate of $600 per evaluation and $300 for meetings and follow-ups for the period of November 21st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018, not to exceed $3,000. Is there a motion? Pete, second. Daj, discussion? All in favor? Number 5, approve an agreement. Resolve to approve an agreement with Pete Riley for the period November 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018 for professional development services at a rate of $650 per presentation or workshop, not to exceed $650. Is there a motion? Cynthia, second. Rob, discussion?
Just, Ellen, this is a new professional developer. What area will he be working in?
It's for Cottle. Mr. Cavieto's worked with him in the past in terms of teacher empowerment and understanding kids, and so he's asked for him to come on as a consultant for one extended faculty meeting in December.
That's great.
Thanks, Ellen.
All in favor? Number 6, approve a stipulation of agreement. Be it resolved that the superintendent of schools is hereby authorized and empowered to execute the stipulation of settlement concerning employee number 665, and the superintendent is further authorized to take all action necessary to effectuate the terms of this agreement. Is there a motion? Pete, second. Rob, discussion?
Basically, although it mentions one particular employee, this pertains to all of our teachers, and it really clears up some language as far as when our teachers are awarded sick and personal days, which with this stipulation will be on September 1 of every school year. So it's just some clarification of contractual language, basically.
All in favor? Number 7, approve a stipulation of settlement. Be it resolved that the superintendent of schools is hereby authorized and empowered to execute the stipulation of settlement concerning employee number 147, and the superintendent is further authorized to take all action necessary to effectuate the terms of this agreement. Is there a motion? Pete, second. Dodge, discussion. All in favor? Number 8, approve a side letter. Resolve to approve the side letter of agreement dated November 20th, 2017, by and between the district and the Tuckahoe Teachers Association as attached to the official minutes of this meeting. Approves payment and thereunder and authorizes the superintendent to do the same, and be it further resolved to appoint Andrew Colasuno as Senior Internship Program Coordinator for the 2017-18 school year at a stipend of $7,934. Is there a motion? Rob, second. Pete, discussion?
Basically, this resolution accomplishes two things. We did not have a stipend in the teacher's contract for the Senior Internship Advisor. We piloted this last year. Mr. Colasuono, one of our high school teachers, took on that responsibility and did it really well. I remember our students really were promoting this and asking to reinstate this program that existed for many years. So this is now basically, establishing a set stipend that we think is fair for this work, and also appointing Andrew to continue his work that he did so well last year.
All in favor? And that was budgeted for, correct? We
Yes.
planned that in our budget.
Yes.
Number 2, accept a resignation. Resolve to accept the I'm sorry. Number 1, personnel. Number 1, extend a leave replacement. Resolve to extend Pia Vaccaro as leave replacement through March 29th, 2018. Is there a motion? Pete, second. Dodge, discussion. All in favor? Number 2, accept a resignation. Resolve to accept the resignation of Benjamin Faber as teaching assistant effective November 6, 2017. Is there a motion? Rob, second. Cynthia, discussion. All in favor? Number 4, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Number 3, accept a resignation. Resolve to accept the resignation of Lori Parada as middle school geo advisor advisor for class trips, effective October 30th, 2017. Is there a motion? Cynthia, second. Pete, discussion. All in favor? Number 4, accept a resignation. Resolve to accept the resignation of Catherine Petty, effective November 16th, 2017. Is there a motion? Rob, second. Dodge, discussion. All in favor? Number 5, appoint stipends. Resolve to appoint the following stipends for the 2017-18 school year. Mariella Ferguson, Science Olympiad Advisor, $2,834. Kim Durbin, Cottle Art Club Advisor, Play Scenery, $2,267. Michael McDermott, Morning Chess Club Advisor, $1,417. Gianna Cazzali, School Play Director, $3,400. Vanessa Nastri, School Play Assistant Director, $1,701. Mariella Ferguson, Diversity Club, Cottle, $1,417. Karen Barros, Middle School Geo Trip Advisor, $1,016.54, prorated as of 11/21/17. Is there a motion? Pete, second. Dodge, discussion. I'll just say those two, the two play, the director and the assistant, those are for Cottle, correct? So maybe we just want to add that in there. Okay. All in favor? Number 6, appoint a teacher's aide. Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Ida O'Keefe Flynn to a probationary appointment effective November 21st, 2017 through November 20th, 2018 as a teacher aide at the William E. Cottle School on Step 4 of the CSEA salary schedule. Is there a motion? Daj, second. Pete, discussion. Is that correct, Lauren? November 20th, 2018? Or is it to the end of the school year?
No, it's a 1 year, it's a 52-week probationary period.
Oh, because it's the probationary period. I understand. Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Number 7, appoint teacher's aide. Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Thomas Corbia to a probationary appointment effective November 21st, 2017 through November 20th, 2018 as a teacher aide at the Tuckahoe High School on Step 9 of the CSEA salary schedule. Is there a motion? Cynthia, second. Pete, discussion?
Are these to replace the resignations?
This is, no, not tonight's resignations. This is a one-to-one aide that is needed in our special education department. Is it a tuition student, Dr. McDonald? I'm not sure. Maybe a tuition student. We went a little bit more with this particular candidate. He has 40 years of educational experience, retired teacher. So, you know, we did offer him a little bit more in the way of steps, and we think he's certainly worth that.
And there were, just because I noticed there was a couple of other appointments for teacher aides. So,
Ellen, do you want to speak to, I think you have, I'm counting 3 total.
Item number 6 is for a student that is placed here by their district, and their IEP was changed to have, they used to have a 3-to-1 aide, they now have a 1-to-1 aide, so we needed an additional person. They can't share their aide anymore, their IEP changed. Item number 7, tuition student whose IEP also just changed and needs a 1-to-1 aide. Number 8 is a tuition student who had a shared aide on their IEP when we got them at the beginning of the year from their home district and realized that they do need more individualized support, so that's also from another district. Number 9 is a replacement for one of the resignations that you have.
You covered
I
it.
think that's it.
I think that's it. Okay.
So
Thank
just
you.
before you
Thank
step
you.
away really quick, so is that, I guess, for a normal process for children who are in our special needs program? Over a period of time, if, as you do an assessment, if you find that they need additional help, then we would add an aide, is that?
At any time, a program review can be called for any child, from anyone within the team, the parents, any of the team members, to address the child's needs and decide if they're being met or if we need to change program or services or accommodations. And so in those cases, those children who came from other districts, because we didn't do their work, right? But they came to us with a plan, and then we learned more about them once they were here, and we're a part of that process of deciding what would be best to support them. And so they do pay tuition into the district.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. All in favor? Number 9, appoint a teaching assistant.
I think we skipped 8. I think we skipped 8.
That's okay. I probably just did it anyway. Okay. Appoint a teacher aide. Resolved on recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Ashley Rivera to a probationary appointment effective November 21st, 2017 through November 20th, 2018 as a teacher aide at the William E. Cottle School on Step 1 of the CSEA salary schedule. Is there a motion? Pete, second. Rob, discussion? All in favor? Number 9, appoint a teaching assistant. Resolved on recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Nadia Gordon to a probationary appointment effective November 21st, 2017 through November 20th, 2021 as teacher assistant at the Tuckahoe Middle School on Step 4 of the CSEA salary schedule. Is there a motion? Daj. Second. Pete. Excuse me. Discussion. All in favor? Number 10, appoint a leave replacement. Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Megan Collins to a 7-week leave replacement at the position of math teacher at Tuckahoe Middle School effective November 27th, 2017 through January 5th, 2018, or sooner at the discretion of the Board of Education on Step 1 MA of the TTA salary schedule. Is there a motion? Cynthia, second. Pete, discussion? All in favor? Number 11, appoint a leave replacement. Resolved on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools to appoint George Ann Cruz to a 5-week leave replacement at the position of special education teacher at Tuckahoe High School effective November 27th, 2017 through December 22nd, 2017, or sooner at the discretion of the Board of Education on Step Lane MA2 of the TTA salary schedule. Is there a motion? Rob, second. Daj, discussion? All in favor? Number 12, increase the teacher. Resolved to increase the teaching load of Colleen Joyce by 0.7 for the period September 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018 at a compensation as per the TTA contract. Is there a motion? Rob, second. Daj, discussion?
Can you just explain?
Yes.
Yeah, this requires some explanation.
Point
Th-
0.07.
This was budgeted for. Ms. Joyce does extra geometry labs. Geometry's been a challenge. You'll hear more about it when the high school data is presented. It's a rigorous course, and there have been some modifications at the state level, but we added a lab. This was budgeted for. Dr. Linehan, I believe, thought it was an automatic rollover because Ms. Joyce did this last year. When we realized she was doing the work, but we needed to appoint her because this is beyond her normal 5 classes. It's extra lab periods, which requires some extra compensation. But she has been doing the work
So
since.
this is the one that she's doing already, not in addition to?
This is not additional.
Okay. All in favor? Number 13, we already did. And we are now at the second recognition of the audience.
We lost our audience.
Okay. Unless Allison.
Allison's still here.
Okay.
Nothing?
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Dodge, second. P. All in favor? Okay, great. Thank you, and have a good night, and a happy Thanksgiving to all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.